Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides. That's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I've built to predict various sports outcomes is affectionately known as Sideline. You'll know more about the model throughout the course of this episode, set to cover the 8 best college basketball games scheduled to be played on Tuesday, February 28th, 2023. Got a lot of good Tuesday games, just like usual. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the page. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations and community rules. See the Google Sheet link in the show description for Sideline's projection on every single game. Remember, this show covers picks in the best games for the best picks on all games. Sign up on Patreon or Black Book Sports. There are different packages and price ranges based on your needs. All those links, of course, in the show description. Remember that sports are unpredictable, so the discussion of this show projects a typical game. It doesn't try to forecast one to a T, as that would be a foolish and impossible goal. It's like a long-term view around here and distracting when a team either can't hit or can't miss from through. Talk about a couple of those situations that have happened recently and how they affect our handicap going forward on tonight's games. That stuff balances out. You just never know when it's exactly going to happen. In other words, please understand that good and bad events will occur. So as much as I'd like to say it'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, I believe this is our last show of the year where we have a show, no basketball happens, and then we have another show. So there's been nothing to talk about. By the time we do this next week, there should be Monday afternoon games. I'm hoping, at least, from conference tournaments. Maybe not. If there aren't, then someone needs to be fired, because there really should be Monday afternoon games to help get us through Monday, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, I think this is like Tuesdays have been great to us all year. This is the last big Tuesday that you have, because then you get the conference tournaments and then March Madness and all that. And you're just never going to get. This is the last loaded Tuesday you get, and it's a great one to end on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll obviously get some really good days next week. But yeah, it'll all be pushed more towards the back end of the week with all the conference tournaments. There will be things happening Tuesday. I believe in general, the the West Coast Conference is oftentimes done some of their finals and semifinals on some of the earlier in the week. So you end up with some good stuff happening there. You'll have a couple of the conference championship games, but yeah, it won't be quite like this slate, because all the big schools that are playing here on this Tuesday are all going to be playing in conference tournaments, some starting on Wednesday, but most of these teams won't be in action until Thursday, or some of them even Friday. I feel like there's some teams that get buys all the way to Friday, which is crazy. But I think the SEC, right? If you get a couple buys and their turn championship on Sunday, you don't play till Friday. It's kind of crazy how that plays out.
Get almost a week off.
Almost a whole week off. Yeah.
You get the double bye,
which some teams could use, right? One of those being Tennessee. We'll talk about them later, and that they still are now having new injury issues that we'll get into that, of course, here. Again, a great loaded slate. But before we get to that, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Already mentioned Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits over there above and beyond what happens here. For $3 per month, you get the play of the day, sometimes plays of the day. I've already released Tuesdays and got 3 great ones for you. For another $2 a month, you get all the model picks, including all the A-grade picks, and access to the Discord chat group, which is the best place to get questions answered about these or other games or other sports. Interact with me, Jake, Cousin Jared, or other bettors who have a lot of great insight to NBA, hockey, all sorts of fun stuff. www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor. That'll get you more details. But even if you're not there, we're still thrilled to have you here. Let's get to it. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Going to start off 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Marquette at Butler. We're going to lay the lumber here with Marquette. Price is -330. As I mentioned yesterday with doing money lines, it's really important to be scaling your wagers. We don't want to risk too much on these heavy favorites, but they are a way that we can just slowly increase our bankroll. We're not going to win every single one of these favorites, but the concept is if they win at a higher clip than the odds that we're betting, we're just slowly increasing that bankroll, which is the goal. So Sideline says that Marquette wins this about 80% of the time, says that the money line price should be -410. So -330 is a B grade pick, B plus almost to an A grade. At -306, it would be an A grade. The model would lay 6.5 as an A grade. Right now, the number is 7. If you were going to play the spread, I think laying 7's fine. We also talk about 7 being a good number. I wouldn't want to lay 7.5 though. But laying 7, or again, a price here in the low -300, it's a pretty good investment on Marquette, who should win this game at Butler. So then says on average they win by 8.5. Butler hasn't been terrible as of late. Marquette's been kind of okay, but in general, I just think Butler's going to be really overmatched. I've got them ranked 129th, whereas I've got Marquette ranked 12th. So this is just too much talent for Butler to overcome, even though they're at home. Total is 143. Sidelines is 143.2, and Butler has been really slowing things down, playing solid defense. Offense can't really get it going, though, and that's probably going to be the problem here, is that Marquette having the 5th best offense in the country, according to Sideline. Butler's going to have a hard time keeping it, but they haven't really been slowing down these games. So model doesn't say to go under, but if you were looking at an under with the way Butler's been playing, I sure would not want to play over in their games. As much as I want to play over most of the time, Butler's not an over team at this point. Jake, what do you have for us on this one?
Marquette is the much, much better team. Butler's been playing better at home. Not good enough. They're still going to struggle here. They struggle to rebound the ball. It's still very jump shot oriented on the offensive side. That's going to play right into Marquette's hands. Marquette's defense has dropped off a little bit in conference play. Part of that is playing better competition, and part of that is just later in the year, not people being able to figure them out a little bit. But they still force a lot of turnovers. Butler's not the team that's going to be able to take advantage of the weak parts of Marquette's defense. Marquette will win the game. I'm not worried about that. Spread-wise, I'm very nervous with Marquette. The way they pulled the plug against DePaul, I think they were up like 20 and needed 15 and ended up only winning by like 8 or 9 or something like that. So they just love to stop playing there when they've got it wrapped up. I don't know if that's coaching decision or what, or if that's just the players. But they play fast enough and they don't turn it over. They're going to win the game. They'll probably be flirting with that cover number all the time, and that's just not something I want to have to worry about on the Tuesday night.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the impetus of this change. I talked about it a little bit yesterday. If you missed yesterday's show, the idea just being here that, for the most part, you're playing money line or spread. It's mostly equivalent. There's very few times, and I would say I love one but not the other. It's kind of like they, on average, are going to be the same. It's just about the enjoyment factor of I'd rather play it. It's not so much that we're playing it safer, because we aren't. I want to make sure we get this right in people's heads, right? Money lines aren't safer. They are more likely to win, but you are paying the price for them. So it's not that it's safer overall, because you are paying that premium. We're paying a premium here to back Marquette, but and like you said, in a situation where we just don't know what Marquette's going to do at the end, they're probably going to be up 10 late, maybe 15 even, like they were against DePaul, and then you just don't know what's going to happen. I'd rather just focus my attention on a close game at that point where the result hasn't been decided than worry about, who's jacking up 3-pointers. Is Butler going down and trying for layups at the end? When do they start fouling? It's more just about the enjoyment factor of, I think the money line is a much more enjoyable play. We talked about scaling here. This would officially be risk 2.3 units to win 0.7. I'm not a believer, again, as we talked about yesterday, in the risk 1 unit on plus plays and win 1 unit on minus plays. That works pretty well if you're staying within plus 150, minus 150. But if you get to these bigger numbers like this, that really puts you at a lot of risk when you want to take big favorites. And there's times when you want to take big favorites on the money line. And it just kind of opens up you to a lot of risk. And there's times when you want to take big dogs and see if they have a chance. But I like the scaling that I've kind of developed here a little bit better. Again, all that's in the sheet. You can kind of follow along with that. But it allows us to play dogs and not feel like we're risking so much. If it's a big dog, maybe just put half a unit on a dog or a quarter of a unit or something real small like that. So it kind of scales us out a little bit more appropriately. So Marquette, the side here. Again, if you want to play it, -7, that's probably a decent look. But again, Jake and I both do like this money line, especially after what Marquette did to us this weekend against DePaul. At 7 p.m. Eastern, St. Louis at VCU. Going to back VCU here -250. This is an A-grade play. Model says this should be -384. That VCU wins this 79% of the time, and anything better than -290 is an A-grade according to Sideline. We've got an average victory here for VCU by 8.2 points. Current number is 5.5. So if you want to lay the 5.5, that's probably the way I would go as well, as a pretty strong look. Kind of a same story to the previous game. Difference being VCU not quite as good as Marquette, but they're at home, so that kind of flips it around. But I kind of see the same sort of thing happening again, that VCU should be up late on. Who knows exactly how the ending plays out, but they're the better team at home. They should win it. Kind of feels that simple. Total's 142.5. Models is 143.4. Both teams have been pretty spot on with regards to total. So I think low 140s is a pretty good number for this one. So not a total I'm interested in messing with. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I love VCU here. I'm not sure why we're getting such a low price, and I'm all over it. St. Louis just not as good as they normally are. They're losing the turnover battle, and they're refusing to rebound. They don't like guarding the three-point arc. They just really don't like defense in general. But VCU has an incredible defense, and an offense that's right on par with St. Louis's. They're shooting the three ball very well, just not often because they don't need to, because they force a ton of turnovers, get a lot of easy buckets, get fouled, do a lot of it that way. There's going to be a ton of extra scoring chances that VCU is going to create on their own. I think they win this game very easy. So I like a money line. I like them to cover. I actually think they probably win this one by double digits. So I might, depending on how I'm feeling, might push that line up a little bit and see if I can get some plus odds.
Yeah. You mentioned VCU's defense. I've got them ranked 19th in college basketball. So like you said, absolutely agree with you there. Completely, top-notch defense. Their best unit on the court by far, and that should be at home, should be what guides them to a win. Also at 7 p.m. Eastern, NC State at Duke. Going to play Duke here at -205. One of the rare times we're playing Duke this year. We have not played them often. But Jake, as you mentioned before, getting finally healthy. The model, of course, being player-based, has all their players in. So if you look at the overall season metrics don't like Duke as much as Sideline does, because the overall season metrics account for a not completely healthy Duke team for most of the season. Now that they're, I guess right about as healthy as they've been all season, you'd say right now. At home, I've loved this NC State team, but I think Duke's the right side here. Sideline says they win on average by about 6 points per game. Says they win this 70% of the time. Prices it at -238, so -205 is a pretty good investment. At -189 or better would be an A grade play. So if it drops a little bit, you could get that. I don't see it dropping into the 100s. I think minus low 200s is about as good as you're going to get. I think it's still a pretty reasonable investment. The spread is 5. This is one where I do really like the money line much more than the spread, just because at 5, NC State's got a good enough offense to hang around in this one. And there's just a lot of ways that Duke can win this and doesn't cover. -205 is a pretty cheap price for a 5-point spread. As we mentioned, that VCU game, that's 5.5-point spread at -250. So we're getting a pretty good deal here, I think, at -205 for the fact that Duke's a 5-point favorite. Again, model says 6, so a tiny bit of an edge there on the point spread, but a little bit of a bigger one here on the money line. Total in this one, 145. Model says 144. It's been pretty spot on with both these teams. Jake, I think you like the under in this one.
Yeah, like Duke is playing very well since they've got back to full strength. They're also benefiting from a lot of scheduling luck here, with 4 of their last 6 games are at home. That's another reason to like them to win, but their defense is just very good. They've been good on defense all year. They've got incredible length at all the positions. They're very athletic, so they can switch through all 5 positions. It really doesn't matter. They can. And NC State is a very isolation style team because they've got a star player and they want him with the ball and let him make all the decisions. So their offense is kind of built that way, and I think that plays in the Duke's hands, especially at Cameron, because you're not going to get as many calls. NC State really needs the calls. They're not going to get as many there, especially with how Duke is playing now. They don't foul a lot on their defensive end, and they still block a lot of shots. And then on the offensive end, Duke is very slow, play through the big guys. They're not a great jump shooting team, not a great 3-point shooting team. I mean, they've got some shooters back and they're getting better, but on the year, nothing I would trust for them to put up a ton of points. I think 70 to 75 is about as much as you're going to get out of the Duke team if they control the game like I think they will. And that's going to be a slower paced, much more grinded out. So I think the under is a good look with them. But I don't know if I would take them to cover. NC State's a good team. 5 is a lot of points, especially when NC State beat them, I think, by 20 on the road. So, I mean, NC State's going to come ready to play. I'm very surprised at this price tag at the -205 because typically Duke and Kansas and Kentucky, all those seem to get juiced just a little bit more on the money line because everybody
want to throw them in every money line parlay they got.
Yep. So I'm very happy with that. I don't think I'll parlay them at all for this game, and I definitely will be taking them to cover.
Disclaimer: Jake is a Duke fan, so his feelings on Duke and how he plays them. I feel like it oscillates. I feel like you're kind of one of those, like, when Duke's play well, you're like, you're gonna back them like every game, whatever. When they've been like a little up and down, you get like super heads, like you just swing from one side, as I'm sure a lot of us do with our favorite teams. We kind of swing that pendulum from one way to the other, right?
Yeah, sometimes they open my eyes to their glaring weaknesses, and then I can't not see them, and then sometimes they just play so well otherwise that I don't see them either, so I just back them no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. They definitely are not as strong of a Duke team as they've been in years past, but again, fully healthy now. I've got them ranked 19th. I've got NC State 41st. So I think better team at home. I think Duke's the way to go here. Again, at this price being so short, we're very price sensitive in these parts. You talk about tempo. I think it's interesting here. It'll be a little bit of a contrast of styles. Duke going to be in the bottom 100 in tempo, NC State in the top 100. So we always talk about the team that's more talented, and the home team tends to have a bit of an edge with regards to controlling the pace in this one. And of course, that favors Duke both ways. Now, obviously, it's easier to speed a team up and slow them down, but Duke being at home has a much better chance of playing their style, which again helps them to win, and it helps the under. Kind of like you said, the model would lean under. It's not the model's favorite under the night, but the model does kind of agree with you that if you can get something in the mid 140s, that's probably pretty solid. That closer to 140 than 145 probably makes a little bit more sense. Not going to go under on this next one, though. 7 p.m. Eastern, Iowa at Indiana. With Iowa, I just assume we're going to have like 1,000 points every game. It seems like the way they've been scoring. Now, they do score more at home, so it is a little bit of a concern here. But we saw Indiana in that game against Purdue, on Saturday, just score a ton of points, it seems like. So over's the way to go here. Model says 159.4, so we're thinking closer to 160 in the mid 150s. Obviously, Iowa plays pretty fast. Indiana plays in the top half of pace in college basketball. Iowa's offense, obviously incredible. Indiana's offense, better than their defense. Iowa doesn't really have much defense. And you have the added benefit that, as we saw on Saturday, if Iowa gets down in this game late, they might start fouling with 3 minutes to go, which is definitely going to get us over. So there's a lot of ways to win this over, which is exciting. With regards to the side, model says Indiana minus 4.6. The actual number that I'm seeing right now is Indiana minus 5. It's a pass for me on the side or the money line. I don't really think the money line prices that I'm seeing are really good. You're in the low minus 200s for Indiana and not quite to plus 200 for Iowa. I think it's priced pretty well. I think Indiana is more likely to win. I just don't know if they're going to be, they might lose. It could happen, obviously. They might win by 3. They might win by 10. I don't really know. Obviously, I don't really trust Iowa on the road. So it's going to be a hard time backing them. But I just am not excited about laying points with Indiana or laying a price like minus 225. I'd much rather lay a minus 225-ish price with the VCU or a Duke at home than Indiana, just because you never really know with Iowa. If they get hot and hit from 3, Iowa's going to win no matter where they're playing, right? If they don't, they're not. So it's just not really a side that I think has a lot of interest. You just never seem to know with Iowa games, and Saturday proved that even to the fullest extent. So overs to play here. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, this game will have an incredible pace to it because Iowa just has to run like that because their defense doesn't stop anybody, and they've got to get up as many shots as possible. Then IU isn't slow. I mean, they're pretty fast for Big Ten standards. They're faster than average. So I think we're going to get a really good pace, a lot of points in this game. IU surprisingly is shooting near 40% in conference play from beyond the arc. They're just not taking a lot of them, which means their offense is working, in my opinion. Their offense is working very well. They're picking their spots. They're doing the right things on offense because they're scoring buckets of points and hitting good threes, where last year they struggled sometimes settling for jump shots when they shouldn't. Turnover issues are all over Iowa. Or Indiana. They're plaguing them. They're not great on the offensive boards. They're going to get all these extra. Iowa's going to get a bunch of extra possessions, and there's going to be a lot of points. You get anything extra Indiana gets. Iowa's not going to get in their way. So there's just going to be points raining everywhere. I use the better team and probably should take care of business, but coming off that Purdue game with the comeback win and Hood Schifino put up 35, you got to wonder where their head's at a little bit. It might be a little like the first sweep of Purdue in a decade, I think. So there's a chance they come out a little slow, not ready on the defensive end or something like that, and Iowa hangs around and then pulls it out late. So I don't want to play the side. I don't want to play the money line. I'll just watch all the points fall.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. Agree with what you said with regards to the team. So I've got Indiana ranked 25th, Iowa ranked 37th. That includes the current injuries for Indiana. So even if, obviously Indiana fully healthy is a better team, not quite there right now. But even not 100%, I still think they're better than Iowa. But I mean, maybe the too long don't read version of this is how in the world would you ever trust either one of these teams? And if you were going to trust someone, you trust Iowa at home. But Iowa on the road, you cannot trust. That doesn't mean they can't win. You just can't trust them. You don't know what you're going to get. In Indiana, I swear, every time we think we figured them out, they do the exact opposite. I mean, they beat Illinois at home in that game where Shannon was out for Illinois. Illinois should have won that game. I mean, that was a very disappointing home game. They got slaughtered at Michigan State, and then they come out and they win at Purdue. It's like, and that's just the last 3 games, but I feel like that's been every set of 3 games for this entire season for this team. So, I mean, I think that the passing on the side here is also just a good choice for like our mental well-being, because it's like, I don't know what we're going to get for either one of these teams. And again, Indiana at home is the better team. So it's not like I don't know what we're going to get tick plus odds. I think Indiana should win, but my goodness, like I just can't trust any of this except for, like we said, Indiana being at least a top half pace team, Iowa playing with a lot of pace, all the offense here. It's a high number, but 160 seems more likely than mid 150s. Sticking in the Big Ten at 9 p.m. Eastern, Michigan State at Nebraska, going to be on the road favorite here at Michigan State minus 150. Sideline says this should be Michigan State minus 226, says they went almost 70% of the time. This is a solid A-grade play. Even in the upper 100s, it would be an A-grade play. Nebraska has been playing better as of late, namely because their offense, I'm just not buying that their offense is that great. Obviously, they do play better at home, but it's not like they haven't had disappointing home losses this season. I think we're getting some good value here on Michigan State based off of that collapse against Iowa. Everyone's talking about that, but that was weird, and probably, couldn't happen again in 100 years if we tried. But even then, it's not going to happen against Nebraska, right? That took a special situation where Iowa, even though they weren't hitting threes and they sometimes go really cold from 3, does have good 3-point shooters. If something like that were to happen against Nebraska, that would be even more shocking just because of the personnel. So they're getting some value on Michigan State here because of that. But I still have Michigan State as the 22nd best defense. As good as Nebraska's defense is, this still pales in comparison to Michigan State. So I got their offense ranked 50th. I've got Michigan State as a pretty solid team here, not getting quite the respect they deserve. Should be really slow pace. Nebraska has been playing faster as of late. That's kind of the concern, but Michigan State wants to really slow it down. So the model does like under in this one, going under 137, as it says the total should be 131. So a pretty strong under based off of the model. I'm just not sure what Nebraska is going to try to do. They've just been playing so fast. Their offense is playing better. Their defense has kind of slacked off a little bit as of late. So it's not really an under I'm loving, but the model does love the under for what it's worth. I just think Michigan State is a great play. Get an A grade here at minus 150. They should be able to go on the road and get the job done. As the model indicates that they should win by an average of 5.6 points. And the last thing I want to say on this, as much as Nebraska's been overperforming and playing well as of late, they've been beating model projections in the last month by 5.7 points per game. Michigan State's been beating model projections by 4.4 points. So it's not that Michigan State's been a slouch either. Again, obviously that disappointing loss on Saturday, but if one thing happens different in the game and Michigan State wins that, they probably are outperforming their model projections by as much as Nebraska, because they ended up underperforming in that one based off the end result. But as we all know, they more or less tied in regulation and probably should have won. So I think Michigan State's been playing really well as well lately. So I just think it's a little bit of a misconception here is giving us some good value on Sparty. That's who I'll be on. Jake, what do you think?
I agree with everything you said. Michigan State is the better team. If I'm taking my emotions out of it, they're the smart play, they're the right play. But, oh, Lord, does it make me nervous to back them on the road, especially after what just happened in Iowa. I mean, they've not been great on the road. And then at Nebraska, for some reason in my head, it's drilled in that they're a very good home team. I know they've had some bad losses at home, but, it just makes me very nervous. I think Michigan State, like I said, Michigan State's the right play, the smart play. I wouldn't back Nebraska for anything. So I'm going to back Michigan State and just be very nervous about it. It's just because they struggle away from East Lansing.
Yeah, and Nebraska, of course, got that big home win against Maryland a little over a week ago. They've also had that win at Rutgers. So again, they have been playing really well. I don't want to downplay that. This isn't about fading a bad Nebraska team. I just think that people are starting to respect Nebraska because they've played well, and they are. But I think Michigan State's just not getting the respect they deserve. It shouldn't be a blowout. I don't really think Michigan State's going to win this by 20. But I mean, they're just a much better team. So this is a really short price and advantageous for us to play according to the model. 9 p.m. Eastern, Arkansas, Tennessee. No play on this game. I don't even know who's going to play at this point with Tennessee. They're apparently healthy, and then now they're not. The new guy hurt. I can't even keep it straight with Tennessee. That is in the model. I'm just like copying and pasting injury reports and feeding it in. But 2 more guys questionable. One of the old guys is still questionable, and then now a new guy questionable. Tennessee's a lot of depth, but at some point, what is their plan here with all these injuries? They got to get healthy before March, and March is literally on the doorstep at this point. Are they going to be playing guys? I mean, they don't want to be too rusty either. I don't know what's going to happen. So it's just a pass for me on this game. It should be a really good contest. Tennessee is favored by 6 with those 2 players at 50-50. Sideline says Tennessee by 8 and says that it would be a C grade play backing them either on the spread or on the money line. I just don't know, because if those guys are playing, then I think this is more like Tennessee closer to 10. If those guys aren't playing, it's probably more like Tennessee closer by 5. So laying it, 6-7 is a little bit tougher. Laying a huge price on the money line. I mean, we've seen Tennessee blow games, so I don't really want to do that. But I can't really back Arkansas on the road either. As much as I like this Arkansas team, I just don't really. I mean, Tennessee's just still the much better team. So again, just a pass there. Totals 135. Model says 133.3. The model would lean under. If you made me, I would play the under 2. I'm just a little bit concerned. We've talked a lot about Arkansas, and they've really been great at doing the opposite of what teams want to do. Tennessee obviously wants to slow this down. They're going to try to speed it up. So that has me concerned about the under. It's what I would do if I had to. But knowing that Arkansas is going to really try to speed this game up, I just don't know what that's going to mean. And again, with not knowing who's going to play for Tennessee, just a lot of question marks in this game. So it should be really good to learn. If you have some thoughts as to what I said there, maybe that gives you a play. I don't know. I'm just going to watch and try to learn and or just see who's playing, I guess, if nothing else. Jake, what are your thoughts?
Look, I love Tennessee unders. I think this is the only play that I could stomach at the moment is playing the under here. And it's not one I'm very happy with. But I just like Arkansas has struggled. Arkansas's pace is going to be the biggest worry, but they've struggled with teams that have very good defenses. If you look at Mississippi State, that was a 70-64 loss at home. Texas A&M was 62-56 loss on the road. Auburn was 72-59 loss on the road. They've been so injured that they just can't get it going enough, and I don't know that they're going to be able to solve this Tennessee defense, even with the injury issues they have. I mean, getting Josiah Jordan-James back was huge. As you saw, they look like a completely different team on the offensive end. I don't think we get another 80-point performance. I think everybody in Tennessee is still mad at South Carolina for what they did to the football team. And so I think we just took some stuff out on them. I think this game looks a lot like that Alabama game, and I wouldn't trust Tennessee to cover. Not going to pay the price for them to win. Don't like Arkansas enough, but I think the under is a smart play where we can get under this 130. I think this game could very easily be in the 120s with how Tennessee is just very limited on the offensive end, especially with Key gone. I know he's not had – if he plays, he's not had the greatest of years, but he's still a shooting threat that spreads the floor out a little bit. That helps with driving and things. I mean, Phillips is still questionable. Josiah Jordan-James probably still isn't at 100%. I don't think he's been at 100% for a while now. I don't know how he's going to do with the quick turnaround here. So I just don't think there's a lot of points in this game.
Yeah, I'm like you. If I was going to make a play, the under is probably the smartest play. And I may be overthinking it, It's just I'm nervous with what Arkansas wants to try to do, but I mean, you make a good point there. They have struggled with those really good defenses, and even Hubble, Tennessee's defense is still elite. And so again, that's probably the smartest play. It's just a pass for me, but I don't hate that play if you're going to make a play on this. We mostly been doing so many overs here, but probably a little bit of value on that under in Tennessee if you're looking to play it. Also, at 9 p.m. Eastern, Texas Tech at Kansas. Going to lay it with Kansas here. It's a 10-point spread, so I'm not excited about laying 10 with the way Texas Tech's been playing, but it's hard to see Kansas losing at home. The thing to remember here, we were playing a lot of favorites today. That's on these games, on the bigger games, on the A-grade plays. It's a mix between underdogs and favorites, and that's kind of the way it's going to be in general. A lot of times dogs have value, absolutely. It's just we aren't covering one that we really love today. It's just because of the subset of games. There will be a lot of dogs win. Some of these may win. Who knows? And it's not so much that I'm just like Kansas can't lose at home. They absolutely can. It's just that they play so well at home. They win tight games at home. They've always done this under Bill Self. He's a great coach, great home crowd. As good as Tech has been playing, Kansas has been playing even better. They've also been outperforming their projections. They got it done against West Virginia in a tight one. Even if Texas Tech keeps it close, I think they can get it done as well. They might run away with it. I don't really know. 10 is just too big of a number to lay. The model says 10.7, so I just don't think there's a lot of value here on the spread, but there's a little bit of value here on the money line at minus 450, though. You never know what these prices are going to do. Jake talked about it earlier with some of these bigger name schools having a little bit extra tax. If this jumps out to minus 550, minus 650, something like that, maybe it's a different story here. But at minus 450, it's a B plus grade. The model says that Kansas wins this 85% of the time. And I tend to agree. It's really hard to see Tech winning this. It's not impossible. That'd be about 1 out of every 6 times. 5 out of 6 times Kansas wins. That makes us minus 450 a solid play. 85% converts to minus 582 in this case for what the price should be. And the model would play minus 409 as an A grade. So anything in the 4s or low 5s is solid. But when you start getting the upper 5s, you've really lost all the value. It's not really worth it at that point. I'd rather just invest in something else if you're looking at an upper 5s or if it gets into the 6s. Shop around on these money lines. They vary wildly, but something in the mid-400s is a pretty solid play on Kansas, in my opinion. Total is 146. Model says 145.2, but both teams have been going over as of late. Kansas didn't quite get there. Missed it by a half a point on Saturday, unfortunately. If I was going to play a total, I'd play it over, but 146 is high enough that I'm not really that excited to. I'm just going to stick to Kansas here. They should win. Rock this one to sleep. Again, Tech's been playing great, but Kansas has been looking like the real deal as of late. I really thought that some of these other teams can hang with Kansas, and I still think a fully healthy TCU might can, as they showed in Lawrence. But, you know, with the way Kansas handled Baylor there, Kansas State falling off, Iowa State falling off, we are really starting to see Kansas as the clear best or at minimum, second best team, in my opinion, in this conference, and I think they show that here at home against Tech. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I just hate that I have to say Kansas is good. It drives me nuts. That just kills me.
It was nice. They struggled so much early in the season. We faded them so much. We made so much money off of them, and that was fun. Right now that they're playing so well, it's like, well, they're kind of good now.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but because that's Bill Self, right? He just figures teams out and finishes strong every year. An incredible coach. Look, I don't trust them to cover 10 here. Texas Tech is playing very, very well. They've figured out offense. They're scoring 70 plus in their last 5 games. I think Kansas wins this game, though. They're playing some of their best ball. They've, besides a weird offensive game and that TCU, that was just weird all around from both teams. The offense has really been clicking. They've got the star power. They've got the offense to really put it on teams. They just forget to do it at times. And I think their biggest weakness is their bench, right? They're 360th in bench minutes. There's just not a lot of depth here. So if you can get them in foul trouble, get somebody that twists an ankle or something, and it's just not that I'm encouraging you to go out and hurt somebody, but if something like that happens, it really puts a struggle on this team, especially at the point guard position. Like Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson can really score, but they're not guys that can run an offense. So if you can get DeJuan Harris in foul trouble, and that really you can see in their losses, he is the key. If he's not playing well, not distributing the ball well, or having to sit out because of foul trouble, they lose a lot. I think Texas Tech has a great coach who can kind of game plan that out. I don't think they've got the ability to do it. I kind of want to go to the over. Man, the last matchup didn't quite make it over this number. I think it just barely got to it. I want to see that number drop a little bit before I play it. But Kansas money line is the right play here.
Yeah, again, in the mid 140s right now. It's one of those. If it drops in the low 140s, I'm with you. I think that over makes a lot of sense. It's just not really comfortable at this number. Last one here for you. Also in the 9 p.m. Eastern slot. San Diego State at Boise State, folks. You're seeing that correctly. That is an under pick. First under pick I feel like we made in weeks. I think the books are kind of starting to catch up. I color code some of my work here, and I'm starting to see a little bit more under colors than over colors as we're catching up. To me, the bottom line on this game, it won't have much pace at all. I think both teams are really happy to play this in the upper 60s on number of possessions. They both rank outside of the top 200. You have a San Diego State defense that I've got ranked 14th in the country, Boise State at 25th. Both offenses are in the top 100, but are worse than that. So both defenses will have an edge. The model projects us at 132.2. Boise has been playing a little bit faster, a little bit more up-tempo. Their defense has kind of struggled as of late, but San Diego State's defense has been playing so well that as much as Boise State's been going over as of late, San Diego State's been twice as strong on the under. So I think 134.5, actually too many. So our first over here in a while. With regards to the side, seems like a coin toss game. Model says Boise State wins this 51% of the time. San Diego State clearly the better team, but on the road, tough travel spot. It's a long ways from San Diego to Boise. As we talk about the Mountain West, I give a little bit extra home court because it's usually just a long travel situation like this one is. Don't know who wins. Should be a really good game. But I'm going to be on the under. People have been clamoring for us to disagree. So Jake is going to give you the insane play of the over, but I'm sticking to the under. What do you got, Jake?
Look, this is a very important game to both teams. Boise State has an outside chance to get the 1 seed if they win this and finish out winning, and some help from Nevada. But San Diego State can pretty much lock it up with a win. So both teams are going to be going full out for it. Last time was a 20-point win. I don't think we're going to see the 72-52. I think it's going to be a much tighter game, much better game this time. San Diego State
for our entertainment, I hope so.
Yes, please. San Diego State is playing just great basketball right now. They're just outstanding. They've got the Mountain West best offense. That includes some pretty good offenses, like you're looking at UNLV and Utah State. They're the most efficient. Yeah, New Mexico. They've got the more efficient offense. They've also got the second-ranked defense in the Mountain West. They are just a very, very solid round team. I think they're going to win. But Boise State is pretty good. They're playing a little faster right now. Their defense is letting them down a little bit, and I think that's where we're going to get a little wonky. This is where I think it gets over because I think Boise State's defense isn't quite going to be ready. They're going to feel like they're going to have to score a little bit more in this game, and I think one team gets to 70. I think it'll be San Diego State. And I think if one team gets in the 70, 72, something like that, it's going to make this over happen really easy because I don't think it's going to be a 20-point game. I think we'll get a 5-point game. So 70-65 gets us over this.
And I think, if you're trying to listen to what we said and figure out how you want to play this game with that disagreement, I think one of the things you said there disagrees with what the model says with regards to San Diego State being the best offense in the conference. My model has Utah State ahead of them in New Mexico, both a little bit ahead of them. And so I think that might be something if you were to look into. If you do think that San Diego State's got the best offense in the conference, maybe that does lean you a little bit more over. Again, the model thinks that Utah State and New Mexico are still better offenses. So like San Diego State offense, just not quite as much as Jake and what he's looking at. He's looking at his own metrics, right? Likes. And so that might be kind of part of the reason where we disagree is that I think San Diego State's offense is good, not great. And so that's where I'm kind of going under. Jake thinks great. That's where he's going over. However you view that might tell you which direction you want to play it. So hopefully that helps you deciding how you want to play it. I think we both agree it should be a really good game. Around the pickle makes a lot of sense. I don't know who wins. I hope it's close. I hope it's not a 20-point blowout. I was really excited for the last game. I thought it would be better, and it wasn't. I don't remember if that was one of the games that Shaver was out for Boise State. It might have been.
I think it was.
I think it was too.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Because I think that was one of those games that they were like 7-point underdogs, and we were like, oh, Shaver's out, but it shouldn't matter that much, and it sure enough did. Yeah. And they got run, if I remember correctly. So he's back now. Boise State's fully healthy. Again, a good team. Not as good as San Diego State, who I've got ranked as 16th best in the country. So, again, a really good team. Coming on strong, they kind of, I feel like, flew under the radar a little bit for me. I was expecting them to be solid, but not this good. I was kind of down on them, and they kind of just – I don't want to say like little engine that could. That's probably disrespectful, but, I mean, they just kind of keep playing well and keep improving and keep proven me wrong. They've just been a great team this season, and it's the model's kind of finally come around and been like, yeah, you actually these actually are really good. I think some other people realized that a little bit more before the model did. Usually the model does see these things sooner than people, and that's where we can get an advantage. But the model was really late to the party on San Diego State, for better or worse.
Yeah, this is one of the teams that, like, with this year with no true dominant team out there, when it gets to the tournament, that you could see sneak into a Final Four berth just because they're a very solid team. They're very good all around, and they've played – and the Mountain West isn't a shabby conference. It's not a terrible conference, so it's not like they've just dominated a bad conference. They've been tested throughout. It's a team to really keep an eye out for your brackets and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I would have said, if you told me that 2 months ago, I would have said you're crazy. Even a month ago, I would have. But yeah, they just keep, proving the haters wrong. Again, I've got them up at 16th, and yeah, the 16th best team, like you said, with that defense. The fact that they play a little bit slower, I think maybe hurts them. I think they're maybe more of a high variance team in that regard. Of it might hurt them a little bit in the early rounds if they get against a team who just hits threes. They won't play with enough possessions, but it makes them more likely to pull an upset themselves later on. So it's kind of that old what Virginia was, right, where they were more likely to get upset, but they can kind of hang with a lot of teams. That defense can keep them in a lot of games, and so they're a team that could pull off a great upset, and make a run. They might get beat early if they run into a buzzsaw because they're not going to be able to keep up. Potentially, so it should be I love all the Mountain West teams. Again, I just hope as many of them as possible make them. I think it's been a great conference and a lot of fun to watch. And that's not just because we watch them because they're the late night games. It's been good basketball. When the Mountain West is down, it's sad, and I love them this year. So
yes, I hope they stay around for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's all we've got then for you today. Jake, any parting words for the viewer?
No, I just cannot wait for March Madness to get here. It will not get here fast enough.
Oh, we got conference tournaments starting. Again, we're recording this here on Monday night. We're about to start with, tonight here with the Atlantic Sun. We're getting a few more going here on Tuesday, then a few more Wednesday, and starting to pick up all the conference tournaments. A lot of fun. If you missed the conference tournament predictions for the futures bets, we got a couple of those in yesterday's episode. If you're interested in other thoughts like that, hit us up on Discord. We'll look through the odds and kind of see what we project. I'll kind of play around with the model and see what we like the conference tournament betting. If that's something you're interested in, again, hit us up on Discord. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy all the sports betting content provided on this channel, dropped right to your feed. Be back again tomorrow with more college basketball betting tips. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.